In the continuation, we're gonna talk about the other commands in drafting toolbar which are being used in measuring the distances and the dimensions actually. So to do this, let me show you this plan view that I have opened it before, and I'm gonna use it and then measure the dimensions. Here in drafting, the first one here is linear dimension and also horizontal dimension and vertical. As you can see, linear, vertical and horizontal dimension. Here in horizontal dimension, we can specify the first dimension point and then the second dimension point horizontally, and then measure the dimension or distance and then specifying the position. Here, as you can see, if we wanted to modify the value of the dimension, here we should open tools and then in Rhino options, and then in document property I click on annotation styles. Here, as you can see, we got the annotation styles that we can associate them to the dimensions, and we can modify them while we want to place the dimensions from annotation style. Check it out, and then in the select annotation style dockable window, and then we should specify the desired one like standard. Following that, if I measure the dimension again, then we will have a new value, as you can see by this way. So we want to move forward by using standard annotation style, and then I will tell you how to modify them. But the first thing that we got it in placing dimensions, here you should specify the dimension points first and second, and to do this we usually use the grid snaps. I mean, if we disable these snaps, then we won't be able to select a point, as we talked about it in season 2. And the next point that you should put into consideration, if we want to measure some dimensions sequentially like this way by using near, and then I want to move on. Here, if I measure the first one, check it out. Here I can click on continue and set it to yes. Following that, I can continue the dimension. Let me show you this option again. For example, here I want to draw some polygons, and then I want to create some copies from these polygons. Check it out like this way, and I want to scale them to have them in different sizes and dimensions. Following that, I want to measure the dimension horizontally, so I pick the dimension, I specify the first point of dimension point. Check it out, and since continue has been set to yes, then I can continue measuring sequentially after specifying the second dimension point like this way, or we can set it to no and have some no dimensions like this way, the distance between these two edges. Following that, I set continue to yes, then the dimension will be started from the second dimension point like this way. And even you can, and in the continuation I will talk about the decimal places and also prefixes and suffixes in dimensions. And the next item that we got it in dimensions is measuring the dimensions of an object. I click on object, then I click on the edge. Check it out, and then I measure the dimension horizontally, repeating the command object. Watch this, and here, as you can see, the dimension is considered 0. I mean the dimension of the curve, because we are using the horizontal dimension. So if I want to measure it vertically, we should click on vertical dimension. Look, by specifying 2 points or object, and both are equal. But if you do not want to get involved in vertical and horizontal dimensions. I mean, sometimes you want to measure the vertical and horizontal dimensions sequentially, so we can use the linear dimension. At this command, we can measure the dimensions horizontally and vertically. It does not make difference, but you should specify the first and second dimension points. Following that, we're gonna measure the length of slanted curves. I mean, they are not horizontal nor vertical. For this, we can use align dimension. We'll start align dimension and then measure the dimension. Or for the other parts, check it out by this way. And for instance, for this sloped roof, check it out, we measure the dimension by align dimension. And for these parts, the dimensions between these curves, like this way, sequentially. And then, as I showed you, we can use these aligned horizontal, vertical, and linear dimension only by specifying 2 points, 2 dimension points. And the next one is for when we want to rotate the dimension. Here I want to use rotated dimension here. And then we should import the rotation angle, for instance, 30. Following that, we specify the dimension points and then the location. Check it out. We can measure the rotated dimension. And then the next one is angle dimension, by which we can measure the angles. We select 2 edges or 2 lines. Following that, we can calculate or measure the angle between them. Watch this. And then you can place the dimensions, for instance, 35, 75 or 225. Check it out. Well done. The next one is radial dimension, which is used for measuring the radius of the circles. Here we select the curve at first and then gives us the radius. By this way, as you can see, and also it gives us the center of the circle. For example, here if I draw an arc like this way and then I pick radial dimension, I measure the radius, as you can see, which is 1.03, and also the center is given. Let us move on. The next one is the diameter dimension, which is used for measuring the diameter of the arcs or the circles or the curves, like this way. The next one is create text. Here, by using create text, we can add a text. I mean, as you remember, we've talked about text before. For instance, you can add some descriptions or explanations to the project. For instance, here in sample, Ctrl Z to undo the processes that we've done with these detail views. And the size, I set it to A3. Then in the continuation, I'm gonna add some details and mention some descriptions by using text. However, we can do this more professional with other softwares like Illustrator or Photoshop. But here we can add some descriptions so simply as the object. Check it out. For instance, totally random, and then I position them in the sheet or page. Here I should adjust the size. So here in style, we can specify the style and then the height. We will talk about a style later. And also for the mask, background or solid color. For instance, for the mask color, we should specify the color at first as the background, like this. Check it out. Here we got the mask at the specified color, and we can select the text as an object and then modify the text here in the description, and even you can change the type of alignment and even the font. Check it out. You can modify the font by this way. Again, at the top view that we are work on, we got the create text here that enables us to add some text as objects. However, it provides us with some other capabilities. For example, if I want to calculate the area of this rectangle, so I start area, then I select the surface or rectangle. Here we are given the area value. I create a copy, and then after copying the value, I add it as a text. Following that, if I maximize the size to modify the area, the text of the area is not changing, is not being updated, since it's not parametric. So at such a condition, we can use text, and then without importing the value or typing the value, here we can use text fields, and then we can associate the text to area and even others like block instance count or the curve length, as you can see. Watch this. Or notes, page name, page number. For example, I set it to area. I select the object, and then after clicking on OK, a value is given to us here, and then I place the area. Then if I modify the size or extend the edges, as you can see, the value of area is changing, is being updated since it is associated to the text. This time I want to calculate the curve length, and then select object. I select the curve, check it out. Here we are given the curve length, that it is totally parametric, and as we modify it, it will change too. Watch this, by this way. Or for instance, this time I want to set it to model unit. Okay, check it out, which is parameters. This time if I modify the unit, project units, check it out. For example, per centimeters, then the model unit, area and length will be updated, and they are changed, as you can see. By this way, Ctrl Z to undo the processes. So we can use create text in adding some descriptions or calculating the perimeter, area, length, model unit, page number, and so on. But what is the difference between the create text and text object? Here in text object, here we can adjust the output or the text as a solid object or as a curve or as a surface, polysurface, and so on. At first, let me specify the font of the text, and then I write or type something, for example Rhinosoft School. Then I set the output to curve. Okay, and here in text, if we have written this by using create text, not text object, we could have modified the text even after writing or typing the text, or modifying the font or others. But this is not available in text object, since when you click on OK and then add your text object, and it is created as an object, as a curve, and you won't be able to modify it. And here we got the closed curve, and even we can rebuild it. Check it out, 16, like this way. Or even edge, a closed curve. So and even we can create interesting fonts for ourselves, like this way. I select each of them and then I rebuild them one by one, by this way. For example, as we have typed right now, and we have them as curves, closed curves, we rebuild them, and then in text object we can create them as soft surfaces, and also solid objects. That enables you to specify the thickness of the solid. Check it out, 1.2. By this way you can adjust the thickness here at the shaded display mode, and then at the rendered viewport, delete, and then get back to the top viewport and continue the commands. The next one is ordinate dimension. Here by ordinate dimension we can specify or determine the x and y coordinates. For example, at the sample or layout at the top view, and then I want to explain the command of orient dimension. I hide all of the objects, so then here we got the grid lines as you can see, and I enable the grid snap, and then I start ordinate dimension. Here for instance I specify a point, a dimension point. Following that, I want to determine the x and y coordinations. For example, x is 10 and y coordination is 10 too. Or for example here, x coordination 12 and the y coordination 20 by this way. And then at the base point, here we can specify the base point. Then we will have the coordination relative to the specified base point. Check it out. This time x3 and 5 for y, since we have modified the base point. Again, I set the base point, the origin point. Following that, enter. I delete these. Well done. Ctrl Alt L to show the hidden objects. And the next one is leader. With leader, we can create a polyline. And then at the end of the polyline, we can add a text. Check it out. The leader. After drawing the curve, then we can add the text that it will be added at the end of the polyline. For example, detail 01, and then it will be added as the leader of the polyline. So again, leader, then drawing the polyline, and then typing the text or description. For example, help, or check it out. By this way, help is added. I delete them. And the other commands that we've been using them, for example, hatch. Here we can start hatch and then select the curve to create a pattern of lines to fill a selected bounding curves, and the region that you specify should be closed. And then here we can specify the pattern in hatch. Check it out, different types of patterns. For example, I pick this, that here I should modify the pattern scale. I minimize the scale. Check it out by this way, 0.01. Following that, I want to start the bricks from the corner, so I set the base. I click at the intersection or corner. I can set the base of the pattern. Or let us try again. Check it out. And then click on OK. Great. And even for the color of the hatch, we can, the color can be modified by the color of the layers. If you modify the object layer, then the color of the hatch will be changed. So we can specify your desired color for the layer and then associate it to the hatch. After creating the hatch, if I select it and then in properties hatch, we can modify the patterns and then the pattern scale. Check it out, 1, and then I set the base. Well done. And the next item that we should know, and we have to talk about it, about hatch, when we want to add hatches to a specific part or region, for example this part or this region. To do this, I start hatch and then I should select curve. Here in the command line options, I set boundaries to yes. Then I select all of the curves. Then I should click inside a closed boundary to hatch that area. For instance, here there is the region or the closed boundary that I want to hatch at the hatch, and then press enter. Look, and then the pattern by this way. Check it out. The pattern scale 0.01 or 0.1. So by this way you can add the hatches to closed areas. And the next item, which is related to hatch and I want to talk about, is using hatch in other commands like apply curve and so on. Here at the perspective, I pick the circle and then I draw it. I create some copies and then I scale some of them. Here we got them in different sizes. I select them and then we loft to create the surface. As you can see, I move them and then by using create UV curves, we select the surface and then we create the UV curves on the construction plane. And then by using hatch, check it out, then I specify the pattern for the hatch and then we set the pattern scale or 25 and then we set the base at the corner. Well done. Here as you can see, if I select this and then in object, the type of the object is hatch. So here I can select the hatch and then I explode it. So then we will have 67 open curves instead of hatch. Again, we select them and then apply curve, check it out, and then we apply them on the target surface, which is the loft. We select the surface and then we start split. To split the surface by using the applied curves, check it out. We're gonna use these curves as the cutting objects. And then we select some of these faces and modify the object layer by this way. At the top view, we select this part, these faces. Let me deselect some of them. Well done. And then we change the object layer. Look, the color is changed. Let me associate the color to the another one. And the other command that you should learn at this session is annotate dot and stuff like that we call them non-scaling objects. For instance, here we got some rectangles or some objects, some closed curves. Following that, I want to place a specific value on at each of them. Here in annotation toolbar, then I add the values or numbers. Then if we wanted to select and maximize the dimension, we can select them and then in object we can increase the height. For example, 4D, like this way. But we do not use these set of commands usually, since they bring us some difficulties and some problems in printing. Here we can use annotate dot, for instance 14, and then we position the annotation. Here by using add or remove arrowhead on curves or arrowhead, we can draw a curve by this way by arrowhead, and then we can add the arrowhead at the specified end. Check it out by this way. We delete these objects and then in layers, here I want to give you some explanations just before the settings of annotation styles and the settings of printing that they should be considered.